Guys, welcome back. Automotive Inc. here. So if you didn't watch part one is going to be the setup of the Chevy Big Red with the cruising castle. Again, weight wise, we're going to be just over 15,000 pounds. Okay, this is basically this trailer can get up to 17 with all its swag, and if I can find a cat scale, we'll put it up and see how much it weighs for sure right now, because there's a lot of swag in it, but it doesn't have water, so that'll help. That's about 90 gallons, so that's 8 gallons times 70, about 600 pounds. But nonetheless, part one is the setup, and I'm doing this in parts because the videos are gonna be too long, and I got to cover so much information because a lot of my watchers have new to the channel or not have basically said, hey man, what axle ratios you running, so etc. and so forth. So I want to make sure that I cover that in every video, so that's going to take up a few minutes. So Big Red 6.6 liter V8 L8T gasser with the new 10-speed Allison, new to the gasser, not new to GM. Pulling the cruising castle this morning. Go down in that corner down there, hit the subscribe button so you guys can keep track of all the parts of this series. Again, this is going to be real world testing of the V8 gassers. Everybody wants to know, can these guys eat at the table with the diesels? Okay, now again, nobody's saying that this is going to beat a diesel, but can it do what a diesel does? Save you 10 grand, save the maintenance, save the headache, and again, not have to worry about all that emissions garbage. So at the end of the day, I went out and bought these trucks. We're going to put them to the test, and I'm going to use just standard driving techniques for the most part, and then I'll coming back some of the longer hills, I will be using the actual cruise control, so you can use that grade control braking that they program into the transmission and the cruise control. Because one thing that the guys at the Gauntlet do is they go down and basically let the engine coast. Well, gas engines don't have an engine brake per se, or exhaust brake, or whatever you want to call, whatever you want to use for terminology. Okay, I just kind of synonymize it as exhaust brake, and they don't have that. So when they cruise down these hills with these gassers, they just coast. Well, they at least turn the exhaust brake on in the diesels. Well, of course that's going to slow down, so you don't have to use cruise control. But the manufacturers really want you to be able to set the cruise control at say 35, descending a steep grade, and let the transmission truck do it, and then you put the input in here and there. If not, it's going to coast. If you shut the exhaust brake on off on a diesel, it's going to coast. So I think if you're going to put a fair comparison about downhill descending, you got to give the truck everything that it has to do its job, or leave them all the same. So if you're going to go down on a diesel, leave the exhaust brake off, the engine brake off, and just see how fast it coasts down with some type of weight behind it. And then same thing with the gasser. If you're going to give the exhaust brake to the diesel, then the gas setup is made to use the cruise control. So we'll go into that. All right, part one touched on the hookup and the setup of this rig. It also touched on the brake ride height. We lost about 1.5 inches here. So Chevy is running a 373. All of my tire pressures are at 70, so we're good there. We are sitting down on the overloads on the 3/4 ton, and the timbrins are in working. All right, we did the light test and everything like that. I showed you guys in part one the actual trailer connection setup, which is kind of cool in here in regards to you can turn this on while you're driving. So some of the vehicles won't allow you to access the cameras on this screen while you're driving forward, but you can access this one. So if you're concerned about checking your connections and stuff, you can kick that on for a few seconds while you're driving and get that set up. All right, so we're gonna put this bad boy in tow haul. So I already got it in tow haul. In addition to that, even at this base grade, we can actually turn it over here to transmission temperature. And it's cold out here, so pay no mind to that. Tire pressure monitor, so transmission fluid. So we'll monitor that here in a second. I want to get back here to this, and we're going to reset trip 1. I always keep trip 2 set from the time I buy it to the time that we go. So this is part 2. This is the introduction to what we're going to do, and now we're just going to start cruising and see how this bad boy rolls. All right, guys, so we're just going to watch the transmission temperature. I'll show you some shift points in here. We're going to get out on the road. But this is going to be really a good test, because a lot of people have said that they appreciate what the guys do at the Gauntlet, but most people aren't doing a 3-mile rip up Eisenhower and calling it a day. They want to know the power's there, sure, but they don't take them on 67 mile an hour loops, and that's what we're gonna do here. So what I'll tell you on this, one of the biggest complaints about my 21 Custom was the braking. I think that I feel that it's better than it was back in the 21. They told me, in addition, if you watch my video on the Gen 2 L5P diesel, they re-engineered so much of that stuff, so it's going to have a more robust exhaust brake, engine brake. So we'll see. It's nice, the truck's level. So initially the ride's pretty good. So all right, so truck's working. I know a lot of people were concerned about exhaust note in here. It's not all that loud. This truck is exceptionally quiet compared to the Ford, just normal driving. Right now I can tell you too, in addition to pulling, and now I can see that the engine's working more, it's still not very loud in here whatsoever. The HVAC is louder than anything else. All right, so we'll watch the trans temp. At the end of the day, the semis sometimes are up in the 212, you know, so we'll see what this one wants to do. Again, this is kind of maxed out, if you will. You can see our coolant temp, that's about normal driving, so we'll see if that changes any. Speed limit right now is 55. So we're gonna go ahead, and this will be the end of part 2, and then we're gonna pick up here in a minute for part 3, where we start doing some rolling hills. Again, this is gonna be about a 60-mile loop, and then I'm gonna give you my impressions. And once we start pulling the hills, I'm gonna just bite my tongue for a minute and let you guys watch the shift points, see if you guys can pick up the video. The camera's actually pretty good about picking up engine noise and whatnot, so yeah, we'll see if we can hear any more in this truck versus the Ford. We'll see you on the next one, guys.